Okay, sit down, pour yourself a cup, and buckle in, because today we are spilling the tea on one of the most chaotic, dramatic, unhinged periods in modern history. We're talking about Germany, 1918 to 1933, giving main character energy going from losing a world war to building a brand new democracy to watching said democracy completely collapse, all in the space of about 15 years. It's a story of betrayal, economic disaster, a man literally standing on a chair in a beer hall, firing a gun into the ceiling, and a government so desperate it started printing money until the money meant absolutely nothing. Sounding like a TikTok fanfic, right? This is the Weimar Republic, and honey, the tea is top tier. Right, so first things first, quick bit of context. Picture the vibe. November 1918, Germany has just lost the First World War. Kaiser Wilhelm II, their emperor, yeets himself out of the country and abdicates. Imagine Boris Johnson resigning, but with way more chaos and fewer hairbrushes. Gone, bye, see never. And in the chaos left behind, Germany needs a new government. Fast. So, they set up what we call the Weimar Republic, named after the city of Weimar where they wrote the new constitution. Original, right? Now, here's where the tea starts brewing. This new republic is born at literally the worst possible moment. Germany has just been defeated in a catastrophic war. They're broke, starving, and traumatized. And a huge number of Germans blame the newbies for the defeat, even though the old military leadership had actually already surrendered. The cherry on top, the new government got lumbered with signing the armistice on the 11th of November 1918. Cue the right-wing meltdown, including a certain someone we'll get into, started spreading the story that Germany hadn't really lost the war militarily. They claimed the army had been stabbed in the back. Dosh legend. Basically a full-on conspiracy theory blaming politicians, Jews, and communists for the defeat. Was it true? Absolutely not. Germany was losing, the military knew it, but the myth stuck, and it would haunt the Weimar Republic for its entire existence. Key exam point, the stabbing in the back myth, or Dosh legend, is crucial for explaining why so many Germans never trusted the Weimar Republic from day one. Alright, imagine having to go to Maggie's on a date, then imagine on said date you get dumped and told to pay for everything. That's the Treaty of Versailles, June 1919. It is bad. Germany has to accept full blame for the war. Article 231, the War Guilt Clause, the drama, then the reparations. Germany is ordered to pay 6.6 billion in reparations to the Allies. That's like every Love Island sponsor deal ever, times 1,000. They lose 13% of their land, 10% of their population, and territories handed to Poland, France, and Denmark. The Rhineland, a chunk of Western Germany, gets occupied by Allied troops. And the army? Capped at 100,000 soldiers, and no air force. Imagine telling the old German generals, no jets, babes. They were fuming. Germans are furious. They call it the Diktat, the dictated peace. Because they weren't even allowed to negotiate, they just had to sign it. And who do they blame? The Weimar government, the politicians who signed it, the November criminals as they were called, for signing the armistice in November 1918. The Weimar Republic is not even a year old, and it has already been blamed for two of the most humiliating moments in German history. Key exam point, the Treaty of Versailles created massive resentment that extremist parties, including the Nazis, later exploited relentlessly. The Weimar Constitution is like booking a Wiltshire holiday and it being to Bristol. Right, let's talk about how this new democracy actually worked. Because there are things about it that are genuinely impressive, and then there are things that are absolute red flags in retrospect. The Weimar Constitution created a proper democratic system. Every German over 20 could vote, including women. which was actually really progressive for 1919. They had a Reichstag, which is essentially parliament, a president, a chancellor who ran the government day to day. Sounds good, right? Here's the problem. The voting system was called proportional representation. The idea is that the percentage of votes a party gets equals the percentage of seats they get given in the Reichstag. Very fair, very democratic, very demure. But in practice, it means dozens of small parties all getting seats, making it almost impossible to form a strong majority government. Coalition after coalition after coalition, constantly falling apart. And then there's Article 48. Oh, Article 48. Article 48 said that in a national emergency, the president could pass laws without consulting the Reichstag at all. Just bypass Parliament entirely. It was meant to be for genuine crises, but it got used over and over again. And once Hitler got into power, it became one of the key tools he used to dismantle democracy altogether. Faster than you deleting that embarrassing TikTok draft you accidentally posted. Key exam point. The weaknesses of the Weimar Constitution, particularly proportional representation, creating coalition governments, and Article 48 emergency powers, are essential for explaining why the Republic was vulnerable to extremism. 1919 to 1923. Weimar's toxic era. Think group chat beef, but with coups. Between 1919 and 1923, the Weimar Republic was catching strays from literally every direction. From the left, communists inspired by the Russian Revolution in 1917 wanted to overthrow the government and establish a communist state. In January 1919, the Spartacist Revolt, led by Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht, tried to do exactly that in Berlin. The government used brutal right-wing paramilitaries called the Freikorps to crush it. Rosa Luxemburg was murdered. Not exactly a great look for the new democracy. From the right, in 1920, a right-wing nationalist called Wolfgang Kapp attempted a coup, to overthrow the government. The army refused to stop him, literally told the government, the army does not fire on other army units. The only thing that saved the Weimar Republic was a massive general strike by ordinary workers who refused to cooperate with the Kapp government. The army won't even protect the government it's supposed to serve. The Weimar Republic has absolutely no loyalty from the very institution that should be defending it. File that away, it matters later. Key exam point, the Spartacist revolt, left-wing threat, and the Kapp Putsch, the right-wing threat, both demonstrate the severe political instability of the early Weimar years. Okay, we've arrived at 1923, and it's insane. 1923 is the year the Weimar Republic's problems hit absolute rock bottom, so buckle up. Germany stops paying its reparations to France and Belgium. So France and Belgium go, okay, fine then. And in January 1923, they occupied the Ruhr, Germany's most important industrial region. They physically send in troops and take control of German factories and mines. The German government tells workers in the Ruhr to go on strike. Passive resistance. Don't cooperate with the occupiers. The government will pay your wages while you do nothing. Except plot twist. They have no money to pay those wages. So what do? They print more money. And more and more and more. Until the money is worth absolutely nothing. This is hyperinflation, and it's wild. By autumn 1923, a loaf of bread cost 200 billion marks. Not million, billion. People were literally wheeling cash around in wheelbarrows to buy basic groceries. Couldn't do that in London. Workers were being paid twice a day, because by the time the afternoon came, the morning wages were already worth less. Some people burned banknotes for heating because it was cheaper than buying wood. The middle class, people who had spent their lives saving, watch their entire life savings become worthless overnight. Pensioners, people with investments, all wiped out. Now, who benefits from absolute economic chaos and a population that is furious, desperate, and looking for someone to blame? Extremist politicians. Remember that. Key exam point: the 1923 hyperinflation crisis, caused by the French occupation of the Ruhr and the government printing money, devastated the middle class and massively undermined confidence in the Weimar Republic. Right, November 1923, Germany is in economic chaos. The Weimar Republic looks like it's about to collapse. Enter Adolf Hitler. Failed artist, full-time menace. Hitler is the leader of a small right-wing nationalist party called the NSDAP, the Nazi Party. He's been building support in Bavaria, and he's inspired by Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, who had successfully marched on Rome and taken power in Italy in 1922. Hitler wants to do the same thing in Germany, just in Munich, in a beer hall. So, on the evening of the 8th of November 1923, Hitler leads around 600 SS stormtroopers to surround the Burgerbrockler, the beer hall, where the Bavarian State Commissioner Gustav von Kapp is giving a speech to around 3,000 people. Hitler storms in, fires a pistol into the ceiling, gets everyone's attention, and announces that the national revolution has begun. Very much Cynthia Erivo is me energy. He forces the Bavarian leaders von Kapp, von Caesar, and von Lossow at gunpoint to agree to support his planned march on Berlin. They say yes. He lets them go, and then they immediately contact the police and army and tell them everything. The next day, Hitler and his supporters march through Munich. The police meet them, there's a confrontation, and 16 Nazis and 4 police officers are killed. Hitler is arrested. The beer hall Putsch equals flop era. Or is it? Hitler's trial is publicized across Germany. He uses it as a platform, making long speeches about his nationalist beliefs that get printed in the newspapers. He goes from being a relatively unknown Bavarian politician to a national figure. He's sentenced to 5 years in prison, but only serves 9 months. And while he's in Landsberg prison, which historians describe as a fairly comfortable prison, he dictates his autobiography and political manifesto to his deputy, Rudolf Hess. He calls it Mein Kampf, My Struggle. Key exam point: the Munich Putsch of 1923 is a short-term failure, but long-term opportunity for Hitler. It gives him national publicity, time to write Mein Kampf, and crucially, taught him that power must be gained through legal political means, not violent revolution. Okay, so after all that chaos, you'd think Germany would never recover. But here's the twist. Here's its glow up. Between 1924 and 1929, known as the Golden Years, or the Stresemann era, Germany actually has a genuine glow up. Gustav Stresemann becomes Chancellor in 1923 and then serves as foreign minister until 1929. He is arguably the most important politician of the Weimar Republic. He introduces a new currency, the Rentenmark, which ends the hyperinflation crisis. He negotiates the Dawes Plan in 1924, which restructures Germany's reparation payments and brings in American loans to stabilize the economy. Unemployment falls, wages rise. By 1928, the economy looks genuinely healthy. And culturally, Germany is thriving. Berlin becomes one of the most exciting cities in the world. The Bauhaus art movement, cabaret, expressionist cinema. Women have more freedom than almost anywhere else in the world. Pop off, I guess. There's a real sense of modernity and possibility. Iconic, really. But, and this is a very important but, the golden years are built on basically Klarna. All borrowed American money. If anything happens to the American economy, Cue the foreshadowing, I guess. Key exam point. The golden years represent genuine recovery under Stresemann, but the prosperity is fragile and dependent on American loans through the Doors Plan. October 1929, the Wall Street crash. The American stock market collapses. American banks immediately start calling in their loans to Germany. The economic miracle of the golden years vanishes almost overnight. Unemployment rockets. By 1932, there are 6 million unemployed in Germany. Roughly 1 in 3 workers. Imagine scrolling job alerts on Indeed. No results. Hungry, desperate, furious people look for someone to blame. And the extremist parties, the Nazis, are right there with a very simple, very angry answer. Germany's been betrayed. We'll fix it. And it works. The Nazi support in the election goes from 2.6% in 1928 to 37.4% in July 1932. Wild. That is an almost unimaginable rise, and it's almost entirely driven by the desperation of the Great Depression. The Weimar Republic, already weakened by years of crisis and political instability, is now facing its final challenge. Coalition governments collapse one after another, politicians make increasingly desperate backroom deals, and on 30th of January 1933, President Paul von Hindenburg appoints Adolf Hitler as Chancellor of Germany. The Weimar Republic is effectively over. Say bye-bye to democracy. Key exam point. The Wall Street crash of 1929 and the resulting Great Depression directly caused mass unemployment in Germany, creating the conditions that allowed the Nazi Party to rise from fringe group to the largest party in the Reichstag. Okay, so let's pour out the last bit of this tea and wrap it up with what you actually need to know for the exam. The key factors that explain why the Weimar Republic fell. 1. It was born in crisis. Defeat, the stab in the back myth, the Treaty of Versailles. It never had the goodwill of the German people from the start. 2. Its own constitution had built-in weaknesses. Proportional representation meant weak coalition governments. Article 48 could bypass Parliament. 3. It faced threats from both left and right throughout its existence. The army wouldn't fully protect it. 4. Economic crises in 1923 and 1929 destroyed people's faith in the Republic. 5. The Great Depression gave the Nazis the mass support they needed to legally take power. And for your exam, you need to be able to explain the causes and consequences, not just describe what happened. So don't just say hyperinflation happened. Say hyperinflation destroyed the savings of the middle class, which created resentment towards the Weimar Republic, which then extremist parties like the Nazis were able to exploit. That's the difference between a level 2 and a level 4 answer. If you want the full brew, the complete detailed breakdown of every single element of Weimar and Nazi Germany, that video is right here. And next episode, we're spilling the tea on Hitler's consolidation of power. How did he go from Chancellor to absolute dictator in less than 2 years? The tea is genuinely unhinged. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we'll see you in the tea room.